Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining our last webinar of the term, where we're going to be looking at how the three of our schools are intending to prepare for September. So before we start, just to give you a brief overview of us as a consortium and what we can do to offer support for yourselves. So basically, we are three different schools who have been highlighted to show and demonstrate excellent use of EdTech to support teaching and learning. We have a very diverse makeup within our consortium. We have Highfurlong, who are a special school, we have Hambleton, who are a primary school, and then myself as I'm from Ribblesdale High School, which is a secondary school, and we all have a variety of different specialisms within EdTech where we can and will be able to support anybody. And what we like to pride ourselves on is that we're basically teachers who can provide support for teachers, and we like to give that real life view on how EdTech can be used to support across a whole organisation. We're very aware that not everything works all the time, but we like to give people an insight on our own knowledge and basically share what works for us and what has not worked also. So what can we offer? So we currently use all three different, we use two of the big platforms at the moment. We use Google Classroom, which is Hambleton, and we use Microsoft Teams, which is used at Ribblesdale. And we like to think of how technology can be used to support the learning of pupils and currently moving forward into a hybrid situation. We are all very, very it is very important to make sure that our pupils remain safe when they are using EdTech, and that we can do that through a different mainstream support or our special education support, which Highfurlong can also help. Okay, now EdTech can also be used for managing pupil and teachers' well-being, but also to support the CPD of teachers and staff within your whole organisation. And one of the main important things is to give you a bit of food for thought, really, about how an EdTech transformation strategy can be used within your own school. One thing that you will hopefully find out today is that EdTech or technology cannot be used as a quick fix. It has to be integrated, it has to be thought about, and it has to be brought in an effective way that has the impact that basically you are looking for. So as we move forward, I'm going to introduce you to Michael, who is from Hambleton, and he's going to give an overview basically of how Hambleton intend to move forward, moving into September. Thank you, Michael.
Hi. Thank you, Leah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Goldie. I am a Year 5 teacher and I'm also the EdTech lead at Hambleton Primary Academy. Before I tell you about what we are looking to implement in September within our academy, I'm just going to talk about our background and how we come to get to the place we are in regards to EdTech. So just a quick overview of our school. We are a one-form entry nursery and primary school. We have 260 children on roll. We're based in the village of Hambleton in Lancashire, and we have an Ofsted outstanding rating. So first of all, how is technology embedded within the ethos of our school? Well, historically, we've been doing this for a number of years, and we began by investing in a one-to-one iPad scheme. We do that through a third-party company, and they always have given us the best iPads at a cheap, affordable rate. I mean, the parents pay £17 a month, and that seems to work really well with our parents. They also get an iTunes voucher, and then we manage that back of house through something called Meraki. Recently, we started to invest in some wireless board technology as well. So instead of hooking up your laptop, etc., to the board with the USB, we now do it all remotely with wireless Microsoft wireless adapters, and that means anyone can come into the school, any teacher can come in and just simply connect up to the board really well. And also if you have a Mac or any Apple technology, we have Apple TVs throughout as well. We also support other schools within our network, and we're an accredited teaching school through the Fylde Coast Teaching School Alliance. So we support those new teachers coming into the profession and give them a lot of CPD in regards to EdTech as well. Next slide, please. So our journey to remote learning, where did it all begin? Well, first of all, we've we got the Google educational platform embedded. So you simply do that by going onto the Google website, Googling educational platform, and you can get all that for free if you are an educational institution. Once we had that all embedded, we then set up everything back of house, our Google Classroom, set up all our school email users, and got everything fine-tuned back of house. We've done existing webinars about that if you do wish to look any further into that. Then we were approached through the Academy Network to develop a consortium. So that's when we come together as the three schools at the moment, which is Ribblesdale, ourselves, and Highfurlong. And then we had that EdTech bid, which was successful. But then COVID-19 happened, and then that EdTech bid was turned into a remote learning journey bid. We adopted the Google Classroom strategy to set up remote learning, and it's worked very successfully since March. And how do we know that? Well, we've worked with teachers, and we've got feedback from them who've told us 95% of them actually have said that the remote learning offer that we gave was very impressive and was very engaging and interesting for the children. Next slide, please. So how do we use the remote learning? Well, first of all, as I've already explained, we use the Google Admin Suite. Then we set up everything back of house, and then we gave out some CPD for staff and children. CPD for staff was obviously a lot easier. CPD for children was not as easy as you could imagine. We had to literally go around each class, show them how to use the basics, navigate the functions. But once that was done, with the support of parents and creating some sort of crib sheets, we're up and running. And it's been working effectively ever since. Are we totally there with our learning journey? Absolutely not. There's going to be a lot of food for thought, especially when it comes to September, and we're going to have to think about that hybrid learning journey, which I'll explain a bit more about later on. And obviously things like communication with parents. We've started to now use something called parent mail, which has been really effective in our communication with them. Next slide, please. So how will we prepare for September, considering the guidelines which came out last week? Well, we're going to start by talking about this blended approach to learning. So this approach to learning combines the existing learning that you would have using school books, using whiteboards, pens, paper, but also incorporating Google Classroom as well to help us with that. That's going to help maximize, I believe, our ability to provide a safe environment, but also giving the children of a normality of the school day. And what types of blended learning are we talking about here as well? Well, we're going to use things like Google Live Feed for all our assemblies and praise, any awards, any achievement. As you know, assemblies are just not really going to be possible when we come back in September. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a tool within Google called a Live Feed. That means that parents and children, that means children we won't be able to see children. We won't be able to hear children, but they'll be able to see the live feed from the deputy or any teacher who is given any assemblies, and they can live feed into that, and we can give them the links through Google Classroom really easily for that. We've decided as well that homework is going to be prepared online through Google Classroom. Historically, we've always given out sheets. But I think there's going to be a lot of footfall there with people going in and around the school. It's also going to help reduce teacher workload, because we were spending an awful lot of time on a Friday afternoon getting all the packs ready, getting everything prepared. But I think we can really reduce the size of that now and make workload a lot more effective, and you won't be spending as much time with the photocopier as well, getting all that stuff printed off. We can really streamline that and send work out for the weekend and for the following week to get back in. It's also an excellent way of monitoring who's accessing it still, etc., and who's doing their homework to be able to return it to us. I'm going to move on now to using tech to support those administrative procedures. The first thing I'm going to talk about are registers. Now, it's funny because I was talking to my colleagues before about online registers, and I know that it's been done for years now. People do Sims, etc. online, but there are also a lot of schools like ourselves and Highfurlong. We still actually have a sort of a clipboard which you tick off for the kids, and then they go up to the office at the end of the day. We take the number of meals that are going to be needed, and then and then the cook will have those numbers. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that in September, so we've had to think fast, like a lot of schools, and we have now put all our registers on Google Sheets, which is part of the educational platform offer that you get with through Google. So what we'll do is they'll click in the Google Sheet, very similar to Microsoft Excel, and they will simply put the children's name in. Then they'll say they're having a dinner or not, and this is a live document, doesn't need to be saved. You can have as many collaborators on as much as you need, and that information is live, and that means the cook will have information she needs. They've got all the information to see who's absent, etc., up in the office, and it's that footfall again. No one needs to sort of walk around the school and stops sort of traffic around the school. Next thing, I mentioned financing completed now through something called Sage Online. I spoke to my bursar, our office manager, about this, and she said this has been absolutely brilliant. And I asked her, is this something quite new? She said, we've had it for about 6 months, which was quite useful, but not all schools do it. They have that just based within the actual school, but this can be done online. And that means if there is another lockdown, a local lockdown, she'll be able to do all that stuff from her couch at home, which is really will really help us financially, etc., and with all the accounts. And then we've got parent mail. We got parent mail about 6 months as well ago, and this has been fantastic for corresponding with our parents. It's been able to enable us to send out Google Forms to parents to find out how well we're doing with things. We can also set up a lot of our parents' evenings, etc., through it, and then send out links for that. It's been absolutely fantastic and has really cut down on workload, paper, and once again, just the traffic around the school, believe it or not. It really has helped. Next slide, please. So next, we've got this one, which is about how we're going to use EdTech to deliver staff meetings and support CPD. So in 2 words, we're going to be using Google Meet for all of that. Whether it's going to be to deliver CPD for staff, we can now do that through sending out Google Meets to all our staff. We also have new staff joining us in September, so we can set up a scheme of CPD for them to get them enrolled and sorted out. Any meetings with external agencies such as CAMS or any hospital workers, that's really helped. We can just do all of that through Google Meet, and even something that we are going to introduce for September are going to be those parents' evenings. I talked about parent mail being able to offer the booking system where Google Meet will actually be able to send out links to parents, and we can have those live one-to-one meetings with parents to give them an update on how their children are doing, thus meaning that children's parents, etc., don't need to come and clog up the corridors. And we think that's going to be a real benefit to us in regards to September. Planning. We use our shared Google Drive to plan collaboratively now. The main problem I think we're going to have in September are going to be kids. Kids are going to be anxious to come back. There's going to be a lot of tears, especially in primary. And we're trying to, at the moment, come up with this very unique, very creative and engaging curriculum all about the children. We don't want to come back and start introducing testings. We need things to change. So being able to collaborate online, share ideas through the use of Google Docs, through our Google Drive shared folder is going to really help us with that. And then you've got this thing about further into the future. Well, who knows what this environment for schools is going to look like even in September. Government guidelines may change again regarding this EdTech and remote learning journey. But one thing I do know is this educational tech offer and remote learning, it's going to be here for a while. It's going to be a big part of our lives in education, I believe, for the foreseeable future. I am now going to hand you over to my colleague from Highfurlong, who's going to discuss details of what's been put in place for them a bit further. Thank you very much, Erica.
Thanks, Michael. So hi everybody, my name is Erica and I am the Assistive Technology Lead at Highfurlong School, and within our consortium we have 3 schools, and supporting Highfurlong we've got our head teacher Neil and Sarah Alderman, who is our speech and language therapist, who, if you've attended any of our previous webinars, you'll have seen Sarah delivering. So Highfurlong are a maintained outstanding special school and we're based in Blackpool. We do have half of our children are Lancashire children, and we cover the ages of 2 to 19, and in September we will have 96 pupils on roll, which has our school has practically doubled over the last few years. We were typically about 50 children roll, so we've gone since we had our new build a few years ago, we've expanded significantly. And we use technology really to enable our students to be the best they can be. We are known within our local area as being demonstrators of how to use technology. We use lots of different devices, software. So we tend to use Google Drive for teachers and sharing that planning, and then within our offer for our students, there tends to be a Microsoft and Windows approach. So we have lots of iPads and apps used throughout school to support learning, but also to support communication. We are part of the Fylde Coast Teaching School Alliance with Hambleton, and we offer support around communication and assistive technology as well. So within school, we have a range of Apple TVs, lots of iPads, including the Osmos. We've reintroduced the VR headsets within the last 12 months. They've gone down a real treat with the students. We use Seesaw which is an app to interact with children and families, much in the way that some schools will use Tapestry or the Class Dojo app. And we're really known within our local area for assistive technology, and we've had lots of webinars in the last few weeks about assistive technology and the use of communication aids. So please feel free to check out our website for any of those. Next slide, please. So we have got a very clear vision and a strategy on how we'll use EdTech to support that transition back into school in September. And our real aim is to ensure not only that our children are transitioned back in as smoothly as possible, but also to ensure that quality of education is maintained, and we're supporting staff workloads. We've already had a lot of this in place, which is what led us to becoming a demonstrator school. Like many special schools, we'll be using a recovery curriculum, as Michael said, to engage and reintegrate our students back into school in a very holistic, supportive and engaging way. And whilst EdTech was always woven into the fabric of our daily curriculum, not only does it support our recovery curriculum over the next few months, but actually it's integral to that, and we couldn't really offer that without the use of EdTech, which is going to be kind of part of our offer during this new normal. And so who knows what September will bring. As much planning as we've done, I still think there'll be a few curveballs along the way. And it's really taken the best bits, what we've learned over the last few months, and using those experiences to enhance our provision for our learners and families, and to keep that moving forward. Next slide. So our strategy moving forward, technology will support us to keep the children at the heart of what we do, which is very much our school ethos and our approach. It will enable us to stay as connected to them and their families as it has done through this pandemic. Really, EdTech has supported us to safeguard our pupils and monitor well-being, not only for students, but for our whole school family, so with parents, families and staff as well. We are aware that some of our students with the complex health needs will not be returning to school in September or for the foreseeable. And really, through the use of EdTech, it will support us to offer those students who will have prolonged periods of absence, to offer them as many opportunities as those students who will be physically in school. And we need to use the tech to support them to feel part of our school community. And we will be approaching it through social interaction, through Zoom and different platforms like that, and then introduce that access to the curriculum, which is obviously they've not had as much of over the last few months, and then look at maintaining those deliveries of different therapies such as speech and language therapy, which is something that we've been able to offer remotely during lockdown. Whilst I'm a massive, and the school as a whole are massive advocates for technology, it's also being mindful not to use technology just for the sake of it. So as opposed to, whereas Michael just said about how you will reduce, at Hambleton they will be reducing that use of the photocopier. For some of our students, because of their needs, we will still be sending home work packs the week before that the next week's lesson, along with sensory resources that can be used alongside those live lessons and the recorded content that we'll be sending home, which will really support that blended learning approach. and it's really using technology as well as all the different resources to supplement that blended learning. Teacher workload. I don't envy our teachers or any teachers preparing for September, and really preparing online resources has always been part of our teachers' planning, but now it's thinking about those resources that can be accessed by parents who actually, it's quite that we need to make it as easy as possible for our parents to support their children's learning. And for those students that are accessing that asynchronous learning, something we've been very conscious of, and I've been speaking a lot with our senior leadership, is about monitoring how engaged are our students in that remote learning. So actually we agreed that their attendance isn't enough. We need a means as a school of monitoring that engagement and that interaction, and what does that look like, and what are we going to request from our parents to show, because obviously as a school we still need to be showing that our children are learning and progressing. So that's something that has taken quite, and I wouldn't say, I think we'd be naive to say we've got the answers already for that. I think it's something that we're constantly going to be aware of as a school. Next slide, please. So all the approaches that I'm going to speak about now have been mentioned in our previous webinars. So if there's something that I mentioned that you think, actually, I'm not quite sure about that, if it might be around access technology or communication aids, please check our website, because we've recorded and put all the links there for our website, our webinars that we've already delivered. So we broke down as a school, using this recovery and this holistic approach, the challenges that we felt that our students were facing, and then how we as a school would approach those challenges. And then actually, as you can see on the right hand side, we can't do that without the use of technology. So we're well aware that many of our students will struggle because there's been that loss of routine. I know that's not just specific to special schools. The way that we are going to support those losses is around the use of visuals. So it'll be things like now and next, or first and then boards, visual timetables, choice boards, and social stories about how students are feeling and the obstacles that they may face, and the anxieties around returning to school. So all those visuals can support that student's understanding around structure and around that routine. And we will be sending these home for those students that are learning from home. We'll be using lots of different symbol making software, such as Board Maker, Widget Online, and Matrix Maker. And I know my colleague Sarah delivered a training webinar on this on Tuesday, so the link is on our website. Loss of structure. So I think everybody, not just students, but staff and families, who've lost that structure. And EdTech, for us now, moving forward, will be offering families a schedule of recorded or live lessons for those students that aren't in school, so that they can access that asynchronous learning around the needs of their child and circumstances. So if a child's had a bad night's sleep and the parent's been up all night, they might not be able to attend that 9 o'clock lesson, but maybe 11, 12 o'clock they can join in for that one. The way we're trying to monitor kind of engagement and encourage that interaction is, the expectation will be that for those students that aren't in school, they will access 2 live lessons per day and evidence that learning using the Seesaw app, and the parents can those lessons can take place around the time that suits them and their families. Loss of friendship. So using our chosen platform, it will allow for those that can't attend to have that social interaction with their peers. And as we have done during lockdown, it will be teacher facilitated interactions, so whether it's story time or assemblies, and we've had teachers and we've had students making forts from home, and teachers have been making them within the classroom, all those kind of quizzes, all that to kind of build up that sense of that school family and that belonging. And we're really conscious to maintain those relationships for students that won't be in for the foreseeable. And again, the opportunities, so for those students that can't attend, they'll have the same access to the curriculum and learning opportunities as the students have in school. And we will be sending work packs, as I mentioned before, the week in advance, which again, we need to support our staff workload, because that is going to be a lot of extra work. I'll just have somebody. So we will continue to provide a lending library of resources. So we've been loaning EdTech, such as communication aids, switches, physical resources to support that learning. And as I mentioned before, we will, for the students who can't join us again in September, we will continue with those remote therapies as well. And then something which I'm quite keen on through developing my own EdTech knowledge while we've been off is really making sure that our students have the skills to use the accessibility features on some of the platforms, such as Immersive Reader and the dictation apps, to kind of encourage that independent learning, as they've been heavily reliant on parents and carers over the lockdown period. I think we're ready. So I've put a list on this right hand side of the tech that we will be using, so feel free to take a picture of that and go and have a look at those in your own time. Next slide, please. And what have we learned? Really, that the addressing our children's anxieties, as Michael said, is going to be at the forefront of our mind. So it's not me driving tech for the tech's sake. It's about using the recovery curriculum for the first few weeks to support the children, so that, because actually if we don't address those anxieties, they're not going to be in a position to learn. So through the use of Zoom and Teams, we've also been holding remote annual reviews, staff training, all those kind of things. And the positive we've taken from that is that actually we've seen a better attendance for our multi-agency meetings. So whether it's professionals from the local authority or parents, it's actually, it doesn't all stop when the door's shut. We have been able to carry on with lots of offers that we would normally run in school. I'm very conscious that as an assistive technologist, that many students will have been heavily reliant on parents and carers for the last 6 months, who instinctively will probably do more for our students than as I would do with my own child, and maybe her teacher would do. And actually, some of those basic skills that we expect our children, they won't come back with in September. So some things will need to be refreshed, and in many cases it's that line of, if you don't use it, you lose it. So certain things I'm very conscious that will need to be retaught completely for staff and students. In most cases, I'm quite positive to report that our students and parents have felt more confident to participate in their child's learning. And it can be quite tricky, I think, from a special schools perspective, to sometimes engage with parents when it comes to learning, because actually, due to the nature of their child's needs, for those 6 hours that the children are at school, they're not being, you know, mum, dad, nurse, teacher, therapist. But actually, it's been, sometimes I think school can be quite an intimidating place, because we've got access to such amazing technology and resources, and we have a team of people supporting their children's learning, whereas at home it can be just like mum or just mum and dad. So actually it can be quite, from my experience, it can be quite intimidating, whereas I think the lockdown has forced our hand to use remote learning, and we've seen a real success in parents engaging with remote speech and language therapy, for example. And actually staff, students and parents have really upskilled themselves in the last few months. And we were discussing as a consortium before that actually we're never going to go back to the schools we left in March. It's not going to be the same. Technology is here, and it's here to stay, and the world is moving. And actually it's our job, I think, as educators, to not only support the children and our students for the world of work, but actually support parents as well. And we've just had to make a few tweaks and amendments to our ICT and safeguarding policies to update some of the scenarios and the challenges that we face during remote learning, because I think some things, and I'm sure your schools will have been the same, some things we've experienced during lockdown you couldn't have written, and I'm sure one day there'll be a comedy sketch on some of the outtakes from remote learning. So again, it's being really tight and having a look and making sure that all new staff coming forward in September are really aware of those policies. Again, as I mentioned before, check out our website for all our previous webinars, and we'll have questions at the end. And I'll hand over to Lee at Ribblesdale. Thank you.
Hello. If you can just bear with me 1 second, because even that I'm comfortable with technology, I've managed to lose my mute button. So, okay. So first of all, just to give you a bit of information about ourselves as Ribblesdale High School. Okay, so we are a local authority 11 to 16 school. We are a mainstream school, and we have a mixed cohort of around about 1,300 pupils from a vast range of different backgrounds. And we currently use the Office 365 platform across the school to support the teaching, the learning, and the wider community. And at the moment, we currently have over 1,000 pupils with our Windows 10 one-to-one devices. Now, I do like to stress at this point, we get no extra money from the government for that scheme that we run. And we are currently at the moment investigating the possibility to get devices for our new Year 7 pupils on a different basis to be able to support them so they can come into school and basically hit the floor running straight away. Now, as a school, we basically use EdTech to support effective teaching pedagogy, and I think that's such an important aspect. Technology is there to not take over any of the effective, good, outstanding teaching that teachers already do. It's simply there to support, and when used correctly, it can be used to make, to reduce the workload for teachers, to ensure that pupils have the right learning materials, and that's something that we like to focus on at Ribblesdale. And our main vehicle basically at the moment is Microsoft Teams, and we use it to engage our pupils and our community. But we have been doing this before lockdown, so we are a little bit further down the road. And another thing to just probably note is as a school, we have gone through the new framework of Ofsted, and we did come away with good, which we also got an outstanding for professional development as well, which as a school is obviously a very important thing that we do like to highlight. So as a school and a secondary school, how are we going to prepare for September? So obviously you're hearing three different stories here. So the approach that Ribblesdale has taken is we need to think strategically about the guidance that has been given at this moment in time, because that can change, and it can change overnight. So what we need to be able to do is we need to be able to create a blended learning approach that allows us to be flexible and adapt when and if we have to in the future. And the way that we are doing this is we are basically using Microsoft Teams as that vehicle to drive our strategy. And it's important to say that at this time, throughout the remote learning last couple of months, we've been evaluating the impact of what we've been doing, seeing what we felt has worked, and seeing how we can bring this forward and refine our different strategies to make sure that they have the best possible impact for our staff and our pupils and the whole community. But the main thing that we want to do as a school is, when possible, to maintain normal running as a school as much as possible. And that basically means we just need to think a little bit differently. So what are the potential challenges as a school that we foresee? So first of all, probably one of the big ones is a risk of partial closure. And how does that impact us as a school? So what happens in the event that a year group bubble has to go into lockdown? How do we provide those that learning? How do we continue to support the pupils? What happens in the event of a local lockdown? So how does that affect staff? How does that affect pupils? Myself, I live in Sefton, but I work in Lancashire. And as a school, we have staff who travel a long distance to get to school to go to work. So what happens in the case that member of staff can no longer get to work, and vice versa for when it comes to pupils? We have a pupils who are from a wide range of backgrounds and a variety of different areas. What happens if one of those areas goes into lockdown? How do we as a school continue to support that pupil? And once again, we also need to think about that there could be different community members who are self-isolating, and we don't want those members of our community to basically feel that they are also isolated from us as a school. So we need to find ways that we can still communicate and still provide the materials and the means for them members to still feel included within what we are doing as a school. So we need to basically consider how we're going to carry on our support for our pupils in the pastoral support, in learning materials, and ensuring that as a school we can basically develop an enriching curriculum. And the way that we are going to be doing this is we are going to be basically providing a consistent hybrid approach, and that will basically be using Microsoft Teams as our vehicle. So what we need to think about is, as a school, when we are delivering content, it is going to be delivered still as we are doing at this moment in time, which is via Microsoft Teams. And I want to stress at this moment in time, when a lot of when we did hit the remote learning stage of education, a lot of schools automatically wanted to investigate how EdTech can support them in that journey. Just because September looks like at this moment in time we are going back into school, okay, I think if anything now, it has definitely highlighted the importance of what EdTech can do for school and education. And if we are looking for these strategies on how we are going to move forward as a school, EdTech should certainly be involved in that digital transformation that we are thinking of. How can we now start using technology to support learning? And that's something that I think not just us as a school, okay, and that we continually do as a school, but other education establishments should also be considering as they move forward. It wasn't a quick fix. It should be something that is basically built within the school to ensure that the school can meet the needs of our pupils and the 21st century that we're currently living in. So as we move forward, the next sort of the next issue that we kind of thought of as a school is a collection of people. So that as a nature, as a school, you are going to have a collection of people, a gathering of people, and these are for different needs. Okay, so for example, assemblies for year groups or bubbles. Okay, how are we going to do that? So we are going to do that basically via the same methods that we've been doing at the moment, and I'll talk about that in a little moment. Okay, we've also got parents' evenings. Now, this is a normal running of a school, so how are we going to offer those parents' evenings? And once again, you know, we have, you know, speaking to my colleagues or you know, Michael, who's in a primary school, coming from a secondary school, I often, you know, forget the differences between the two setups. But we currently have year 6 pupils who are leaving primary school setups in a very nervous state already, and then coming to a secondary school that uses technology that they may never have had experience of. So how are we going to do that at this moment in time? Okay, and the way that we are going to do it again, and I can't, you know, keep stressing this, is we will use this hybrid approach by using Microsoft Teams. Okay, you know, there are different ways that we can communicate. We can use live events, okay, which we don't actually do at this moment in time, but this is how we are going to hold the likes of transition evenings, and you know, for example, the rewards evenings that we offer, certificate evenings for our year 11s, and we're going to offer these type of events as we move forward. And then we've got these meetings which are more personal, where we can have these conversations and basically check on how our pupils, you know, and parents are actually doing. And then there are also these pre-recorded content, which sometimes it is the best way to do it. As, for example, we are currently holding something which we call the Ribbies, which is where we nominate different pupils throughout the year for a variety of different things. Now, we're aware that for different commitments at home, not all parents can be on a meeting at the same time, or all pupils. So we've pre-recorded this event, and we will make it available between certain hours of 4 and 8 o'clock at night, and that means that the parents and the family can log on and enjoy that session when it best suits them. So it's trying to think a little bit differently. But one thing that I would say is, no matter on the event, it's always clear to think about the purpose of that event and which strategy, live events, meetings, or recorded content, meets the purpose of that event. So that will happen on a continuous basis for us. We will always look at the event and see which means suits that event better. And then we move forward. So for example, our pastoral checks. Okay. So how do we check that our pupils and our classes are performing well? We will still have a situation where we will have many pupils in front of us, but we also may have the pupils who are self-isolating or are on lockdown and they can't get into school. So how are we going to do that? And I think the way that we will still do this is we will still use Teams as a method for communicating, and the pupils who aren't able to make make it into school will be able to dial in effect, to be able to still be involved within the community at that moment in time. And then once again, we're talking about pastoral. It's that one-to-one. There are some times where pupils will need a one-to-one meeting. So how are we going to do that? Once again, we will continue to use the procedures that we do. If they are in school, we might be able to set up social distance meetings. And if not, we will be able to continue with our secure Teams meetings where they're recorded, they're secure, and they are saved in secure locations to make sure that everything is there and meets the policies. And then, it comes back to staff gatherings. How are we going to do department meetings? For myself, a computer scientist with 3 people in the team, I could do a social a social distance meeting. The English department with 13, 14 people in, it would be very difficult. So once again, it is continually to use the vehicle of Microsoft Teams to support those meetings, for staff to be able to collaborate, for staff to be able to communicate in different ways and work together on different documents really does have that beneficial effect, but once again, that long-lasting effect. And as we move forward, I know Michael mentioned this, and this is an issue that we need to obviously consider as a school, which is this continual professional development. So how are we going to do it for our current staff? Okay, the one thing that we've been doing is we've been doing webinars like this, but internal, where we focus on different areas of EdTech, and we will save them and they will be put in a location for staff to be able to access at different times. But the one thing I do want to stress is it's not just been strategies on EdTech. It's been on effective teaching pedagogy, for example, the Alex Quigley method, but strategies that actually complement EdTech as well. And by combining the both, okay, we feel that we are basically building up a bank of resources that staff can dip into to decide when and if they are the best strategies to use to ensure that pupils are getting an all-round learning experience. And then we need to look at, as many schools have, we have still continually recruited, and we've had a recruitment policy. And for September, we have about 13 new members of staff. 7 of them are experienced teachers, and 5 of them are NQTs. Now, we have to remember that experienced teachers are coming into a school that uses technology quite effectively and efficiently. We need to make sure that they feel supported in using the same strategies that we feel. And once again, that's how we think. And to be able to do that, we have our Ribblesdale webinars. We've got all of our recorded content that we've done within school. And we've got our now specialists all around school, where we started off with maybe one specialist in a department. Due to the nature of this remote learning, the school is now full of specialists that will be able to support new members of staff, and it's about linking them up to make sure that they have the time to be able to learn the platforms that we're using. But also as well, talking about new staff, we've got to look at our NQTs. NQTs were affected very differently. A lot of them probably got to the end of March and then their placements were finished. And then depending on the school and how the school developed content, they would have had a different role. So we're also aware that our new NQTs might be on different journeys on their development too. And we've got to make sure that they still get that enrichment of good teaching pedagogy, how they, the effective teaching strategies, what we do for assessment, and we've got to make sure that they also are continually developing their own their own teaching techniques too. And once again, support staff, we've as a school, we've recruited an awful lot of new support staff, and sometimes they as our support staff like to say, they are forgotten when it comes to comes to ensuring that they're able to use the technology too, because if without the support staff being just as effective as the rest of our teaching staff, they're the people there that hold things together. They're the people that we've got to ensure that our staff are supported within and without a classroom. So as a school, we're going to do this through different bespoke programs. We're going to deliver them all remotely. Okay, and they are going to be done through the likes of different webinars. We call it a Ribblesdale webinar, but they are basically bespoke CPD sessions that different members of our staff put on for the school community. And as we move forward, we are probably going to be looking at more bespoke department webinars as well. So how do you do something within the area of mathematics or geography, rather than just as a this is how you use Teams? We're going to be quite bespoke about different departments, and that will hopefully support new teachers who are coming into those departments, and also give the different support that NQTs might need as well, and basically give the staff the confidence to investigate new techniques that they might not have done before. And once again, because they're recorded, we're going to store them in stream, and they basically act as a YouTube channel where you can dip in and out of those different content when you would like to. And then something else that we use within Ribblesdale is called the MEC, or the Microsoft Educator Centre. And that is a vast wealth of different courses, but because we're a Microsoft school, they are courses that are designed around Microsoft products. So how to use Microsoft Teams, and not just that, but all Microsoft products, but also focuses on teaching pedagogy with EdTech as well. And there are a vast amount of courses there, and because they can be worked at the member of staff's own pace, it is something that we're also going to use to make sure that staff, feel comfortable when they come into our establishment, and hopefully they will hit the ground running really. And the next thing that we need to think about really is our curriculum development. Okay, so what are we going to do? Okay, as a school, we are basically going to ensure that we have a blended approach of effective teaching strategies and EdTech to support the delivery. So let's say, for example, we are in a situation where a teacher is in front of a classroom. When they deliver that content will also be placed on our hybrid, on our Teams platform as well. So pupils will be able to access it who are not available to be there at that time, but also we can also share materials and different bits and pieces like that. Something that we've done at Ribblesdale is also tried to stop a lot of the printing, just due to the ability to spread, if we're delivering different bits and pieces and paper all around school, and that's something that we wanted to consider, to try and go more tech-based, and we are within that fortunate position where we do have our pupils sat with a computer in front of them, and we know that not everybody is in that fortunate situation. Okay, we're also, as a school, looking to support the transition process from primary to secondary. We've also provided, we have currently got transition events currently in for our pupils, where we are going to provide bespoke training on our platforms that we use, for example, Microsoft Teams, but also some bridging units of work for the core subjects. So, for example, we've got units of work that were provided for our Year 6 pupils for, English, mathematics, science, humanities, and they are, when I say bridging gaps, they are designed to be fun, engaging. We want pupils to come into school excited, and if they're looking at different ways that we're doing that, for example, maybe an English assignment on Minecraft, that might give them a sense of, actually, I want to go to Ribblesdale, and we're trying to think differently how to do that. And that's something that we've looked at to provide those bridging units of work for our Year 6 pupils coming to us next year. And once again, we want to develop the skills of for 21st century. I think that this is something that we sometimes forget, is we are living in a 21st century. Most of our pupils are what we would call digital natives. They have been born into a society that is used to using technology. And it's often the, our teachers who are a little bit more concerned about adapting this technology. And this is what we want to do. We want to develop the skills for a 21st century for our staff, for our pupils, and for our whole community, to ensure that they are comfortable to be able to use these different platforms that we do have. And another thing is we have to think that currently the way that we've been delivering content, our pupils have had to basically become critical thinkers and independent learners, because staff haven't been there all the time to support the learning process. And what we do want to do as we move forward, we want to establish those critical thinking and those independent learning skills that a lot of our pupils have undertaken and have started to develop. So as we move forward, we really do want to kind of think of different ways and different strategies on how we can continue that in using our hybrid approach. And basically our motto at the moment is pupils coming back better. It's we want them to come back better. We want them to come back stronger. We want them to come back looking forward to a school, to get back into the normality, however that looks, in the future. And that is us as a school on how we intend to move forward. So what I would like to do now is basically open up the platform for any questions for any of our three colleagues. I've not been able to see the chat, so if you do have any questions, there are a couple of things that you could do. You could first of all post the question in the chat, or please raise your hand and we'll ask you to come off to speaker, and please do ask any questions. So I'll come back to that in a minute just to give people any time, and I'll just finish the couple of slides really where we've got to go. Okay, so the next steps, what should we do, or what should we think about moving forward? Okay, the first thing is, as a consortium, we are here to support, and at the moment, the government are providing funding for schools to get free support, and that's where it doesn't happen very often when it comes to EdTech. And the other thing that I do like to think about with us as a consortium, we are teachers, and we are using this technology, and we're using this technology successfully. And as I like to say, it's for teachers by teachers, and that's something that I think that a lot of schools or people in your current position should really think about. Can we sign up to this demonstrator program, and can I get that support? And think about putting that EdTech plan in place, being aware of, it's going to have to adapt over time. You're not going to get everything right straight away, but that's where we as a demonstrator school, as a consortium, can help you. We will speak to you about what we've got wrong, how we've overcome it. And, I'm sure all of us have got a list as long as our arms to be able to advise, what didn't go well for us. And that's something that we will be able to share our knowledge with you. And once again, review the procedures that you have in place. Okay, with a really important thing, and I suppose it's with a specific focus on keeping students safe. And I suppose it's not remote working at the moment, it's going to be a hybrid environment that schools move into. And that's something that we need to consider as we move forward. And just one last thing is, what I would also suggest is direct staff to the educating centre to support with either Teams or Office 365 apps, and also ensuring that, basically your teachers have a wide variety of different resources. Teachers and staff have a wide variety of different resources at their disposal. And just to give you some things to just finish before I go back to questions, is our EdTech Demonstrator website is up there at the top. At the moment, we currently have our past webinars all available for you to be able to access. In the future, we are going to develop bespoke quick wins guides for different for basically focusing on different subjects, and they will also be made available on there as well. And if you do want to reach out to any of us on social media, please do. We have our social media tags there, and that is a very good way to be able to get in touch with us. Sometimes it does take 1 or 2 days, as I'm sure you can appreciate. At the moment, we are getting a lot of traffic, so please do bear with us there. But once again, if I can stress, please go to this EdTech Demonstrator website. That is the place to get personalized free EdTech support, and that is allocated time for yourself. Okay, so I will just now go back to, is there any questions? I don't know if Michael or if Erica has managed to see any that have popped up in the chat.
Just looking over, Lee, I don't think anyone has asked any questions now.
No,
Okay, not a problem. Well, at this time, basically this session was really a bit of food for thought on how you're going to move forward, but also a nice way for us as a consortium to bring our webinars to a close, because this is our last webinar before the summer before the summer holidays, and we thank you for the members of staff who have joined us on this journey and that we've been able to support. So thank you very much. Have a good day and stay safe.